There are a lot of frustrated fan bases in the NFL right now, many of them. As a Bears fan, I'm a part of one of them. But throughout the course of the 2016 season, I don't know if there's been a more flummoxed, angst ridden, angry fan base in the NFL than the Indianapolis Colts. And at the end of the day, I kind of get it. I understand it. You know, the Colts were supposed to be the next elite team. They were supposed to be the ones that were challenging the Patriots every year behind their young, new version of Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. They were supposed to be the ones to ultimately usurp the Patriots in their throne as the dominant force in the AFC. And you look at the first few years of the Chuck Pagano, Ryan Grigson, Andrew Luck era in Indianapolis, and it looked like it was going to be that way. First 3 years of Andrew Luck's career, 3 straight trips to the playoffs. Each year, the team advanced further in the playoffs. So you get to the beginning of the 2015 season, and you're like, hey, this could potentially be a Super Bowl team if you follow the natural progression of things. That's what it was supposed to be. And, Andrew Luck was supposed to be the next dude for the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years. He was supposed to be that gold standard. I mean, what a fortune for an organization. Have all those years of Peyton Manning and all that success that came along with it. Then the year that he hurts his neck happens to be Andrew Luck's last year in college. Sometimes it's not about being bad, it's about being bad when you're bad. And the Indianapolis Colts hit it on the head, the right time to be bad, because they got that first pick in 2012 and they were able to get the rights to Andrew Luck. And this is how it was all supposed to break down. Andrew Luck was going to step in and fill the shoes of Peyton Manning, and the Colts are going to be fine for another 15 to 20 years. And maybe long term they'll still be fine. But right now they're not. You had Andrew Luck get beat up and battered and miss about half the season last year, and the team ultimately missed the playoffs. And this year, another season, Luck's been, for the most part, healthy, been nicked up here and there, but healthy enough. And the Colts are out of the playoffs for the second straight year. And when I go on Twitter and social media and I see the reaction of Colts fans, and, it seems like since the beginning of the season, people have been waiting for Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano to be fired. And I kind of understand it because, when last season kind of broke down and you had those Super Bowl aspirations and they ultimately came for naught and weren't even close to fulfilling those Super Bowl aspirations, there was talk of dissension between Chuck Pagano and Ryan Grigson. They weren't on the same page. Were one or both of them going to be gone? And then I don't know if Jim Irsay popped open a pill bottle and got everybody to kind of chill, but everybody got on the same page and everybody got extensions. It was kind of weird. You're rewarded not making the playoffs with extensions for the general manager with significant questions about his job performance, and ultimately the head coach, who also has similar questions about his job performance. So, maybe 2016 was going to be better, and ultimately it wasn't. And, at first, early on in the year, I thought it was kind of early for everybody to be jumping on the fire Pagano and fire Grigson bandwagon. But as the season progressed and as the season went along, I understand why Colts fans are feeling that way. And I completely agree with Indianapolis Colts fans. The time has come for Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano to be shown the door. First, from Ryan Grigson. Here was a guy that early on, it looked like in theory he was going to do a lot of good things. Now, to be fair, in the grand scheme of things, he happened to get lucky by taking over a situation where he inherited the number 1 pick in the 2012 NFL draft, where he was able to get Andrew Luck. That makes you look very good. But ultimately, the proof is in the pudding and how you're going to follow that up. And he really didn't follow it up that well. Now, the 2012 draft is easily the best of Grigson's general manager term in Indianapolis. You got Andrew Luck and Kobe Fleener, even though he's not with the team anymore, and Dwayne Allen and T.Y. Hilton. That was a pretty solid draft. That was a good foundation building block type of draft. You got your quarterback, you got your number 1 wide receiver, you got a couple of tight ends, you got some weapons for Andrew Luck to work with. But the problem is the draft has been very wanting for Ryan Grigson ever since that point. There's been a lot of failures, a lot of mistakes, and just mistakes that you can't afford when you have that type of young franchise commodity in Andrew Luck, playing the quarterback position for you. You look at 2013, that draft for the Colts was a complete freaking wash, except for the fact they traded a second-round pick to get Vontae Davis. That was the only successful pick that they had out of that, was somebody that they had to trade for a veteran commodity, which perhaps was a bad idea and led to something else more disastrous that I'll touch on in a moment. But remember Bjorn Werner? He was a guy I had significant questions about coming out of Florida State, whether or not he could actually translate to a 3-4 defense, and ultimately we found out he couldn't. They got really nothing else out of that draft entirely. So the year after taking Andrew Luck, Ryan Grigson, minus the one trade of a second-round pick to get Vontae Davis, completely strikes out. Completely. And I talk about this with the Bears and with other teams. When you miss on an entire draft class like this, you might not catch up with you immediately. You may be able to plug some of the holes in the dikes in the short term, but eventually that lost draft will catch up with your organization 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And in part, it ultimately has. Now, to be fair to them, the 2013 draft was not all that good to begin with, but there were teams like the Detroit Lions who did very, very, very well in the 2013 draft. They got guys like Ezekiel Ansah and Darius Slade. But you look at the Colts, they completely missed, minus the trade of a second-round pick for a veteran. Then you turn around, and they give up a first-round pick in 2014 to get Trent Richardson. Now, at the time, I mocked the Browns for doing that deal, and I still mock them because they spent a top-5 pick on Trent Richardson and then traded him, less than 2 years later. But the Colts look like shit on this deal, too, because they gave up a marquee first-round pick. And any pick in the first round to me is a marquee pick, because you have that ability under the new CBA to get up to a 5th year of team control over the player. That's a marquee pick. You value that team control, that kind of team cost control mechanism that's built in for the NFL, somewhat similar to baseball, but not entirely the same. They took that and gave that up to get Trent Richardson, who is now out of the National Football League. And out of that other draft class, you got guys like Jack Mewhort and Dante Moncrief. But imagine how much better things would be if you didn't miss on your first-round pick of 2013 of Bjorn Werner, and then in 2014 you didn't hugely miss by trading your first-round pick for Trent Richardson, and then 2015, well, I didn't blast him as much as the Colts fan base did for taking Philip Dorsett in the round 1. I understood why a lot of people thought it was a luxury pick. My thought was at the time that if you valued him and you thought he was best player on the board, you still have to take him. You have to be true to the board. The bottom line is, though, he hasn't panned out. So you look at that, 3 consecutive drafts where the Colts have, let's be honest, missed with their first-round pick. Bjorn Werner, trading for Trent Richardson, Philip Dorsett. It's not hard to see why the Colts have started to struggle. You can't miss on those marquee picks like they have and expect to see success. Now, the 2015 draft, granted, it gave you guys like Clayton Gathers and Henry Anderson and David Perry, but not game changers, not impact players. And then when you combine that with what Ryan Grigson has done in free agency, everybody, we were talking about bringing in the Andre Johnsons and the Trent Coles and the Frank Gores of the world and how this was smart and you were bringing veteran leadership into that locker room. No, all you were doing was getting older. Now, Frank Gore has been solid, but Trent Cole is old. Andre Johnson couldn't play anymore. And that's Ryan Grigson in free agency for you. People hyping up how good of a closer he was in free agency. Maybe the reason he was viewed as such a good closer in free agency was because he was an idiot in free agency and he made bad decisions. Ryan Grigson has to go. Via his failures in the draft and free agency, there's no justifiable way, unless Jim Irsay is on another pill bender and he doesn't pay attention to what's going on. There is no way you could justify Grigson still having a job. Now, sometimes you could just blame the general manager for bad personnel decisions, but the coach still does his thing, and the coach deserves to keep his job. Or on the flip side, you feel like a general manager has done well, but the coach has not, and the coach needs to go and the GM can stay. In this particular case, this is a package deal. You brought both of them back for 2016. You need to show them the fucking door and send them packing after 2016. Because you look at Chuck Pagano. This is now 2 straight seasons with no playoffs in arguably the worst division in the National Football League. It's one thing if they weren't making the playoffs for 2 straight years and they were playing in, let's say, the NFC East this year or the AFC West this year. Or even a division like the AFC East where you have 2 playoff teams and the Bills hovering around 500. But that's not this division at all. You talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, and Houston Texans, and nobody's going to confuse any of those organizations as championship contenders at this moment in time. And this is the second straight year they failed to get the job done. And the problem with this is Chuck Pagano is supposed to be a defensive-minded guy, yet his defenses consistently stink. They fucking suck. This year, 24th in total points allowed, 27th in total yards allowed. You bring in a defensive-minded head coach and pair him with an offensive franchise player, like a quarterback, let's say. You expect the franchise-playing quarterback to be able to get the offense right, so that way you can make the defense right, and then you got something. Well, you got the quarterback right, but you got the defense dead fucking wrong. Poor drafting, poor coaching, poor play calling, all of that fits in on the defensive side of the ball. But even more so than that when it comes to Chuck Pagano from a total team aspect. You look at how many times over the past couple of years, and really this has been an epidemic throughout Chuck Pagano's 5 years at the helm of the Indianapolis Colts. Colts fans know what I'm talking about. How many times you see the Colts will come out and lay an egg in the first half, and they'll be down by 17 points, 20 points, 21 points, 24 points. And now in the second half, the offense has got to go into hurry-up 2-minute mode to try and catch up. These teams of Chuck Pagano's consistently come out and fall flat on their face to start the game off. And they create a situation where the offense struggles, questionable play calling, mind you, at times, and the defense just sucks and allows teams to run out to huge raging leads. And it's ridiculous. Like, you look at this year, I could think of at least 4 games where it's kind of played out, where the team wasn't ready, the defense gave up a shit ton of points, got the team way behind, Andrew Luck tried to rally them, and ultimately the defense let them down. The Detroit game to kick off the season. You're down 10 in the fourth. Of course, you take the lead with 43 seconds left after Andrew Luck sits there and leaves you on 2 straight scoring drives. But then your defense proceeds to immediately allow Matthew Stafford to march the Lions down the field, and they kick a game-winning field goal with 8 seconds left. That's the Colts under Chuck Pagano. The Jacksonville game in London. They're down 17 in the fourth. They came out flat. They weren't ready to play to a shitty Jaguars team. Yet they scored 2 TDs in the fourth quarter. But the defense then, late in the game, gives up a 42-yard touchdown reception to Allen Hurns, and they lose that game. The first Houston game. Notice I said first Houston game because there's 2 examples of this. You're up 14 with 7:04 to go, and you end up losing the game in overtime. Imagine how different this season would feel and look right now for the Colts if they had managed to hang on and win that game. That was an embarrassing loss. Time on Sunday night. You let a crappy Texans team with a horrible quarterback come back on you and score 14 points to tie the game, and then you end up losing in overtime. Then not to mention the second Houston game where you're down 16-3 in the third. Instead of this first time where you were up big and then your defense gave it up, this time you were down big, and then Andrew Luck has to try and lead a comeback, get you within 2, but ultimately the defense gives up some points late in the game and puts it out of reach, and it's game over. You got a team that rarely plays for 4 quarters, a defense that puts offense in early holes consistently and has done so consistently over the past 5 seasons. A defense that has gotten worse, not better. They've gotten old, they've gotten slow, and they've gotten even more poorly coached than they were a few years ago. And ultimately, you're wasting peak years of Andrew Luck's career. You're talking about a guy now that's, 26, 27. He's 5 years into his NFL run. You know, you hope that you get another 8, 10, 12 peak years out of him. But what if you only get 3? What if you get 5? What if you get 7? It'd be a shame to sit there and waste any more of Andrew Luck's career under the quagmire of suck that has been the coaching of Chuck Pagano and his staff and the general managership of Ryan Grigson and his scouting and front office department. The bottom line is the Colts need wholesale sweeping changes before they waste one of the most valuable commodities in the National Football League. Andrew Luck should be a Super Bowl champion, a multiple-time Super Bowl champion, a future first-ballot Hall of Famer. But if the Colts are allowed to continue to go down this path due to the incompetence of their owner, Jim Irsay, Andrew Luck will be wanting for both of those things and end up accomplishing neither. It is time for these 2 bums to go, As Owen Hart once so eloquently said, enough is enough, and it's time for a change, and it is time for a big change in Indianapolis.